oil.
It's a good time to call on our next guest, someone who knows as much about Putin and his energy policies as, well, anybody on earth. In fact, he's the author of the new book, The Colder War: How the Global Energy Trade Slipped from America's Grip. Investment analyst Marin Katusa, Skyping in from Vancouver, British Columbia. Marin, as always, it's great to have you here on America's Forum.
Thank you.
The last time you were here, it seems that Putin had strategically positioned himself to be a centerpiece on the world's energy playing field. Now, to hear some assessments, it sounds like Putin has lost virtually all of his chips in this game. What happened?
Nah, it couldn't be farther from the truth. That's what the American mainstream media wants to say. But look, Russia currently has about 400 billion and change in reserve currencies in US dollars. They've got hundreds of billions of dollars worth of gold. They have annually their trade surplus of over 200 billion. There's a lot of powder Putin still has. Now, there's no question that the drop in oil has been painful, but it is by no means terminal. Now, the American media is trying to make this very terminal. I disagree. Let's look at what Putin's doing moving forward. Tomorrow he's going to have a very big speech, and he's already announced the reforms that the Russian central bank is going to make, the 7 key reforms, and the Russian stock market reacted by rebounding almost 20% today. So we are in very volatile times. Now, in the speech, will he hint to maybe diplomacy? He wants Europe to recognize that Eastern Ukraine will be an autonomous region. And will Germany now, who's now done a 180 on the whole South Stream and is preventing further sanctions because it is hurting them. So there's a lot of politics, geopolitics being played here. So Putin definitely has still a lot of cards to play in this colder war.
Are now Western sanctions on Russia's economy affecting domestic support, do you think, for Putin?
Oh, definitely. It's painful, but it's more the price of oil. And the key is, if you're a Canadian producer or any producer, you want your currency to decrease at a greater rate than your commodity. And that's what people have to understand here. The price of oil has dropped in half, but more importantly, the ruble's dropped more than that. So the cost of producing Russian oil and Russian natural gas has now significantly decreased. This makes the Russian oil and Russian natural gas very promising, very interesting for the Chinese. So what this is all doing, all these sanctions have now backfired on Germany. Angela Merkel's now saying, hey, we need to rethink these sanctions. But what these sanctions have really done is pushed Russia closer to China. And that is a major key element here moving forward.
We've got a little more than 4 minutes remaining in our time here, Marin. And obviously, we've seen, I don't know if you call it adventurism, I guess so, almost a neo-Soviet phase with Vladimir Putin. To the Ukraine and all that it entails, is that a linchpin still for public support of Putin in Russia, even with what's going on with the ruble?
Definitely. We have to put ourselves out of our Western mindset and put yourself in a Russian mindset. The Russian media is very different than our media here. There's one side of the story there. And if you look at the Russian news, it's all about how the euro and the US dollar is doing so well. It's not talking about the crash of the ruble. And right now, it's hard for us to imagine, but in Russia, the average Russian admires Putin. If you understand Russian history, literature history, the Russian people really band behind a strong political figure like Peter the Great or Catherine or now Putin. And people have to understand that, look where the Russian people have gone through. They've seen the collapse of the Soviet Union. Then in 1998, they had the default. Putin's been good for the average lifestyle of the Russian. And yes, there's corruption and the people know, but they still accept it because they see what Putin is doing is best for Russia's future.
And speaking of lifestyle, some companies, including Apple, have suspended online sales within the country. Are more companies likely to do the same?
Definitely. You'll see more things on McDonald's. What's going to happen there? Same thing. You're seeing a real anti-Western sentiment in Russia. So I'd expect not just the people to revolt, but also the Western companies may face new rules that the regular Russian companies won't, maybe new taxes. So this is just the beginning. It's going to get worse.
2 minutes and 30 seconds. Let's change gears in light of the developing story today in the Western Hemisphere, in the United States, and with the island nation not very far away to our south, Cuba. News that the United States will renew diplomatic relations with that communist nation. There was some thought, indeed, the Wall Street Journal featured an article a few months ago about a new neo-Soviet Russian expansion into Cuba. Will American recognition be a counterweight to prevent that, or is it full speed ahead for Putin on just about every front? Got about a minute and a half.
It's going to be a challenge. My mother-in-law and father-in-law just got back from Cuba, and the Cuban people have really changed since the 60s with the Cuban Missile Crisis. And I think this is a great opportunity for America to put a wedge in a historical ally of Russia. Now, remember, with the weaker ruble, it's going to be more expensive for Russia to do anything internationally. So this is a great opportunity. It's still early days, so buyer beware, be very careful. But this is a great opportunity for the West.
And in terms of that opportunity, what happens just to open up the market? With the minute remaining, the grip of the Castro family, the Castro brothers, does this start to slip with this diplomatic recognition, or does it strengthen Castro?
I think it's going to strengthen them in the near term because the corruption will work through its system. But in the long run, as more companies come in and the resorts and the casinos and then all of that come with it, it's going to be great for the average Cuban, and it's going to be great for the Western interests.
Well, we shall monitor what happens. We're waiting to see and get official word from President Obama on this reported diplomatic move. Marin Katusa, we thank you for Skyping in north of our border, Vancouver, British Columbia. Of course, Marin Katusa, the author of The Colder War, How the Global Energy Trade Slipped from America's Grip. Again, the developing story today that after a half century, really more than a half century, the United States will renew diplomatic relations with Cuba. An important story we will continue to follow. America's Forum steps aside right now, back following this Newsmax Now update.